Great. Thank you everyone for joining this town hall tonight with Representative Lindsey LaPointe and Senator Rob Martwick. We're really excited tonight to talk about environmental issues, especially the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act with your representatives. We are so excited to have them in Springfield being champions on renewable energy, on climate, on energy issues. And you're so lucky to have them be in Springfield representing you and being champions on these issues. So with that, tonight, just for an agenda, we'll have the legislators kick off, and then we'll head into Scott Allen from Citizens Utility Board and Jessica Beverly from the Sierra Club, just talking a little bit about issues. Then we'll go into a Q&A. We have some questions sent in advance, but we're happy to take questions that are put into the chat. And we'll be looking at Facebook as well. I know we've got Jessica on here from Representative LaPointe staff. She can check out the Facebook, let us know if there's any interaction there. So thank you again so much for joining us. And Representative LaPointe or Senator Martwick, which of you would like to start?
All right, as the junior, I'll jump in. Good evening, everybody. I'm State Representative Lindsey LaPointe of the 19th House District, and thank you so much for joining us virtually for it. This is actually the second joint environmental town hall that Senator Martwick and I have done together. And it was actually right about 2 years ago in person when we did our first environmental town hall, and we were convened at the Austin Irving Library branch in Portage Park. So tonight we're virtual, but tonight's different. We are going to be talking in depth about an actual bill that is now law that Jen from the Illinois Environmental Council just referenced, the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act. So 2 years ago, it was a bill, it was an idea, and when we were all in the library together, it was bullet points on a PowerPoint, and now it's a real live law. And now some of us are going to, all of us actually, we're going to undertake the really hard work of implementing the bill. This truly is a nation-leading climate action bill, and Illinois is not known for enough positive things. And I believe, and I hope you believe, or perhaps you will come to believe after this conversation, that we actually have a lot to be proud of in terms of what we've just done with passing this bill into law here in Illinois. One of the really valuable things about being a legislator is the fact that we get a bird's eye view into what all the residents that we represent care about. And of course, we get that through many emails, phone calls, one-on-one conversations, random conversations on the sidewalk when we run into people. We get the privilege of asking people in non-awkward ways, because it's part of our job, what do you care about the most? What big issues do you care about the most? And then we step back and we listen. And I've had the honor of having this seat for just 2 years, but pretty early on, it became very clear to me that one of the biggest issues that people in the 19th House District and across the far northwest side of Chicago care about is climate change and the environment. And thankfully, I also care a whole lot about this issue that we're going to dive into tonight. I was very proud to not only vote yes on this bill, but also to stand with members of the Green Caucus in particular in Springfield back in the spring, and then again stand together in the late summer when we finally did pass the bill, to say that this must be a bill that puts climate first, that this has to be a bill that holds utility companies accountable, and it has to be a bill that inserts equity into our very fast growing renewable industry. So that's some of the stuff you're going to hear about tonight. I took that stand because I've long cared about the environment, but very, very importantly, I took that stand because the people I represent made their voices heard on this issue. something I've thought to myself and said out loud a lot in my 2 years in office is that it's one thing and important to know who your elected officials are. But it is even more important for your elected officials to know who you are. And when you take the time to reach out, when you send an email, when you request a meeting, when you communicate what you care about and establish yourself as a resource, and sometimes even as the subject matter expert that you are, and looking out over this Zoom, I see subject matter experts that I'm very lucky to represent. You join in the efforts, you become partners, you help hold your elected officials accountable. So I on this issue in particular, it is the issue that my office has heard about the most in the last 2 years. And I want to give a lot of credit to some specific people that have taken the time to engage on this issue again and again over 2 years. And some of those folks are here tonight. So I just want to shout them out and give them lots of positive affirmation. Some of them are Sierra Club members, so credit to Sierra Club for having just a very strong action-oriented membership and group. Susan Zimney, Mary Vasquez, Lois Nowak, Colin Seaman, all wonderful advocates who have built a relationship with our offices. And then I also want to shout out a man named Tom Bradshaw, who works in the solar industry, who took the time to sit down with me and educate me about how important that industry is and how we were really experiencing something called the solar cliff that this bill helps to mitigate, to help moving forward with growing our renewable jobs here in Illinois. So with that, as we move forward and talk about this bill in depth, I just invite all of you listening here virtually or on Facebook to just keep thinking about what are those big issues you care about. And then I invite you to continue to reach out to our office and partner with us to help get work done, whether it's on implementing a big bill like this or continuing to work on environmental issues or some of the many other big issues that we tackle in Springfield and right here in our communities. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my good senator over in Portage Park, Rob Martwick.
Thank you, Lindsay, and thank you everyone for joining us today in this town hall. It's great to be here with all of you. Thank you, Jen and Jessica and Scott and everyone who's here to help out with this. Yeah, I want to start by telling a little story. It's a little self-deprecating story, but I think it helps to put everything in context. So I am the state senator of the 10th district. I had the honor of preceding Representative LaPointe in that seat. I held that seat for 7 years. When I first got elected in 2012, I took office in 2013 and moved into my predecessor's office. And very soon my assistant said, some people want to come and see you. And I said, okay. And it was, I want to say it was Jen. It was Nick McGrisso from the National Resource Defense Council, and it was Jack Darren from the Sierra Club. And this is important, right? We have a citizen legislature. I'm a real estate lawyer. Lindsay's a social worker. What do any of us know about complicated energy policy or complicated environmental policy? And the answer is little, right? And why do I tell you that? Because now it's 2013, early in 2013, and these three sit down and they said, we're here to talk to you about fracking. And, you know, I'm a new legislator, and the last thing I want to do is, you know, look like you don't know what you're talking about. But I didn't no idea what fracking was, right? I had no idea whatsoever. And I was like, oh, okay, let's talk about fracking. And they went to explain the whole process. And I said, okay, so we're against that, right? And the answer was, well, actually, no, because we've negotiated the strictest set of fracking regulations in all of the country. And so we've actually come to a point where, you know, we want you to support this. And why do I tell you that? Because that's the way the process works. We are not subject matter experts. We are representatives of this democracy, representatives of you, representatives of the people that we represent. And we're not supposed to be experts on every issue, but when I was elected in 2012, without a doubt, environmental policy was the like on the forefront. I wanted to leave a better place. I am, despite the gray beard and the gray hair, I'm an old dad. I'm 55 years old, but I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. And the most important thing to me, there was a story yesterday about how these kids are going to have to deal with so many more heat waves and floods and droughts and crop disasters because of our changing environment. I want to give them a chance to enjoy a planet like I enjoyed a planet. I want an environment for my future. So, I used to make a little joke about myself when I would go and visit with the Sierra Club or Illinois Environmental Council. I would say, I consider myself an armchair environmentalist, meaning I don't always know what it means to be green, but I know I want to be green. And so therefore I rely on the expertise of those people who I trust to tell me what it means to be green and what it doesn't mean to be green. And so when we get into these complicated energy policy issues like we did, and it without a doubt, the most important aspect of this from Representative LaPointe's perspective, as she said, and mine, was how does this affect the environment? But to be fair, while it was our most important one, and I assume Jen's and Jessica's and everybody else's here, there were other policy considerations, and there were labor considerations. There were, and you're going to hear about some of these other considerations today. But that's the key, right? That's where we learn from the people that are the experts. We use that to help us guide our decisions. And I can tell you that I am so grateful for the collaboration and the partnership that I've had with the members of the Green Caucus and those organizations that support environmental causes here in Illinois, the ones I mentioned. And because of that, we were able to pass a bill. And it wasn't easy. I was joking to someone, I had a bill that has nothing to do with tonight, but some of you might have heard of it. It was a bill to create an elected representative school board for the Chicago Public Schools. And I joke that, it was 6.5 years of my life to get that bill across the finish line. But then I started thinking about this bill. How long, when was the Clean Energy Jobs Bill first filed? Jen, what was the year? How long has it been? Has it been 4 or 5 years that we've been working on this legislation? I think of the town halls and all of the rallies out in front of the statue, the Abe Lincoln statue in front of, front of the Capitol over there. But it's been a long haul. And these complicated bills, sometimes it takes a while to get these things across. As I said, there are so many different interests at play here, pulling at each other one way or the other. And we certainly saw that at the end with this bill. But I think that the thing that I take away from this bill that makes me so proud, and again, I'll repeat, I'm not an expert, is I think we all agree that this is the most environmentally responsible piece of energy legislation, the most aggressive decarbonization bill passed in the United States of America. We are setting the bar. And we are going to drag every other of the 49 states along with us as we move towards a clean energy future. And I'm so proud to have been a part of it at the end, but I'm also proud to have been a part of this from the very beginning and fighting all the way along. And just sometimes it takes a while to get that, to build up that momentum to get that bill across the finish line. So proud of the work that's been done and happy to be a part of this town hall tonight.
Great. Thank you so much, Representative LaPointe, Senator Martwick. And now I think we're going to head into our presentations. I'm just going to give a rundown of what is in the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act. So I have some slides. Presenting, everybody's good. See these? Great. All right. So I realized I didn't really give an introduction, but my name is Jen Walling. I'm Executive Director of the Illinois Environmental Council. We're an organization that has been around since 1975, and we're sort of a trade association for a lot of the environmental groups that are within the state of Illinois. Both Cub and Sierra Club are members, and I see a lot of people on here who have participated in our coalition lobby days. and that sort of thing over the time. And we work on a whole lot of environmental issues beyond energy, like clean water, open space, sustainable agriculture, food production, recycling, et cetera. And I'm going to get into a little bit of why this was so important that we act and what is in the bill. And again, if you have questions, please put them in the chat or email them to Jessica, or at the end we can take some hand raises if we get there. So again, thank you for participating. So I think that when we think about the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act and the work that we did, we have to think about the crisis that climate change is presenting to our globe, but also that we are seeing in Illinois right now. In Illinois, we are seeing increased levels of our lake. We're seeing increased extreme weather events. We're seeing damage to infrastructure from those extreme weather events. We're seeing changes to the growing season and destruction of crops, all sorts of things that show that climate change is here and it is impacting us right now, not just our children in the future and generations to come. And the IPCC, a number of scientists globally, put out a report on climate change and where we're at, calling it a code red for humanity. We need to act now. And one of these items is that the UN Secretary General said the report must sound a death knell for coal and fossil fuel plants before they destroy our planet. And this is a lot of what we've worked on within the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act. Showing you a little bit about why Illinois is important, being at number 6 in the country in terms of total carbon dioxide emissions, incredibly important. And a little bit more about why we chose to address these sectors. Here's some more information on greenhouse gas emissions. And I'm seeing the top here is the power sector, and you can see that the power sector is declining, especially compared to transportation. But the power sector has for a long time been the largest emitter of greenhouse gas emissions of any sector of emissions. So that's why we've taken so much time to tackle this portion. But there's definitely pieces that we're going to need to do next, a bunch on transportation, decarbonization of homes and the carbon sources there, looking at the sustainable agriculture and conservation sectors, to increase those to also store greenhouse gas emissions. So there's more to come, but I say that just having worked for several years on accomplishing this really big amount of work. We've been part of the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition, which is faith, environmental, and community groups advocating for legislation that includes a strong climate plan and ensures equitable workforce and business development. Now I get to talk a little bit about what is in our nation-leading comprehensive climate and equity bill. Just in terms of the portion on renewable energy, it's putting Illinois on a path to 100% renewable energy by 50. And there are interim goals, and not just interim goals, interim mandates that are 40% by 2030 and 50% by 2040. It almost triples the amount of money that is going to renewable energy so that we can reach those goals. It commits Illinois to a carbon-free future by 2045. This portion was incredibly important. Not only do we need to have new energy sources, but we have to turn the spigots off of fossil fuels within the state. So we've already seen a number of coal plants in Illinois close. In fact, a quarter of Illinois' coal capacity alone closed in 2019. And we're going to see that happen more and more because of its competitive with natural gas. But we need to close our natural gas and coal plants to get to 100% clean energy and stop emissions from the power sector. We use this to address the solar cliff. Many of you, especially if you have a solar business, you may have heard of these challenges that we're facing with the solar energy businesses and the money some challenges to the bill that had passed in 2016, the last bill on energy, and I guess that's 5 years ago now. That bill had some challenges to its administration. That meant that there was money supposed to go to solar that was not being used on projects. So that was fixed. And then there's a whole bunch of new projects at schools, community-driven community solar, and a lot of renewable energy projects led by BIPOC, Black, Indigenous people, color contractors. I talked about a quarter of Illinois' coal capacity closed in 2019. Well, when that was happening, a lot of those workers from those plants, the Vistra plants downstate, were told you have 30, you have 60, you have 90 days to go find a new job. And in a lot of those areas, that meant like they were losing their job at Christmas time, which is not what we want to see in terms of supporting people that have been a part of this economy. So we worked on just transition provisions that mean that displaced energy workers have rights during closure, including advance notice, including jobs training, including access to their pension, et cetera. And then new incentives to encourage renewable energy and storage at existing coal plant sites, a little bit of a coal to solar transition, and then grants to communities that are suffering from the loss of the support from the energy plant infrastructure. So we also focus a lot on workforce equity, which we're really excited. The provisions that are in this bill are nation leading in terms of its equity. We're creating 13 workforce hubs across the state, and we're really focusing these programs on a few different areas. So one is training. So there are training programs, but what we learned from the Future Energy Jobs Act was really supporting people who were in those training programs by things like wraparound services or other social services. Because if you have barriers to entry to a job training program, you may not be able to buy books, you may not have transportation, childcare, making sure that folks can be successful in the training program and enter into the fields. This also includes some training in prison for solar jobs, et cetera, that are really important to make sure that we have people entering the workforce. And then there is funding for grants for contractors and other BIPOC businesses to help make sure that they can succeed and hire people in communities. There's also a lot on utility accountability. And, I think Representative LaPointe was just very strong in standing up for not re-electing Speaker Madigan. And I think that absolutely led to our ability to win and win big on this issue, because ComEd and Exelon really dominated the discussions on energy issues for decades. And we were always told that we could attach some minor provisions to a ComEd or Exelon bill, and their power was significantly weakened during this. It's still not everything that like we want in terms of not getting not having them included, but we really strengthened where we're at. Exelon was not in the negotiating room. Labor was really working on their behalf on some things, but really strengthened where we're able to be. And we were able to add some really important provisions on utility accountability to make sure that some of these issues that happen won't happen again. And that is requiring the ICC to investigate whether funds were misappropriated, creates a new public utility ethics and compliance monitor. And really importantly, it ends the formula rate. So I started this job in 2011, and that year a bill regarding smart grid passed the General Assembly. And when that bill passed with the General Assembly, it included a formula rate that basically allowed the utilities to just have a formula to increase their rate based on economics, but it didn't require that the utilities meet any actual goals for reliability, for diversity, for solar, all of those sorts of things. And this requires now, if they want to get changes to their rate, they are going to have to meet certain goals that are really great for customers. And I know Scott can cover some of that. So these are Scott's slides. So I think we're just going to head into that, and then we can take some questions at the end about what was in the bill. I know I went through that really fast. But Scott, do you just want to tell me when to change slides?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Jen, and thank you for all your work on this bill too. You and all of the IEC staff, it's great staff over there. Of course, Senator Martwick and Representative LaPointe. Thank you for being champions on this too. I wish that I could say the same for my representatives, but that's okay. I'm Scott Allen, Environmental Outreach Coordinator with Citizens Utility Board. I'm down in Springfield. And for anybody who's unfamiliar, CUB, we're a consumer watchdog organization. So we defend ratepayers in front of the Illinois Commerce Commission, the General Assembly, and the courts. And so one of our main concerns at CUB, aside from the health and safety of ratepayers, is to keep rates low and push for programs that offer protection, especially to the most vulnerable consumers, low-income consumers, but more importantly, getting utility programs to help people lower their bills. So I'm going to kind of cover some of that here, talk about some energy efficiency programs that we won in the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act, some low-income protections, and some low-income access to solar. So next slide, please, Jen. So on energy efficiency, in the 2016 Future Energy Jobs Act, we had these energy efficiency goals that were set, the cumulative persisting annual savings, but they only went until 2030. So this bill calls for that forecasting years in the future to take place in 5-year increments to out through it to at least 2040. So that's good that now that we're going to build all this renewable energy, the utilities have some requirements to try to save, to ultimately deliver less electricity to people, figure out how they can help with that too, through various programs. Building of electrification, starting in 2022, utilities may now offer and promote fuel switching or electrification programs, so they can help make it easier for people to get rid of gas appliances and switch to electric. I think, Jen, you mentioned building decarbonization is one of the next things to work on, and we can't decarbonize buildings if we all have gas appliances. So this sets the utilities, incentivizes the utilities to take a step in that direction. We have some low-income specific energy efficiency programs. This bill says that ComEd must spend at least $40 million a year on low-income energy efficiency programs. That's up from $25 million per year, $13 million per year for Ameren, up from $8.35 million, specifically on low-income energy efficiency programs. And 80% of that funding has to be spent on whole building weatherization. So that's good for low-income consumers who normally wouldn't be able to afford that, maybe. So the utilities can come in and offer some assistance on that, and that helps consumers lower their energy bills too. All of their air is not leaking out of the house. The utilities will be required to bundle low-income energy efficiency programs with other assistance, such as solar for all and weatherization programs. And the utilities can work with community action agencies to make sure that people are aware of the programs and they know how to get signed up for them. And something that I really appreciate about this bill is that consumers with high arrearages will be specifically targeted to enroll in these programs. And next slide, Jen. So continuing on with the kind of the energy efficiency and low income, there's a health and safety income qualified programs. So 15% of the utilities weatherization budget must be used to address health and safety concerns. So those are things that would normally prevent a contractor from completing energy efficiency installs and retrofits. There'll be a fund of money that can be used to get the house up to code or whatever needs to take place so the contractor can finish the job and those people don't get left behind. And this now applies to 501c3 nonprofits, daycares, group homes, etc. They'll be able to have access to these funds as well. There's a low income accountability committee. So we right now have a stakeholder advisory group and an income qualified group for the North and South to interact with utilities and kind of help develop these programs. The purpose of these groups is to inform advocates and community action agencies and other interested parties about what's going on with utility energy efficiency programs. Up until now, the utilities have had kind of an outsized role in these groups, and that's tended to suppress participation from some stakeholders, and the utilities tend to set a certain tone for those meetings. But now the Illinois Commerce Commission will have oversight of these groups, including the supervision of the facilitator. The committee is also required to meet at least twice a year in the northern part of the state and twice a year in the southern part of the state. And this committee must include BIPOC representatives. So to have that in the law now is very important for the participation of these groups, to give their feedback to the utilities, tell them what plans aren't working, and help direct some of that funding. There's an adjustment to utility incentive mechanisms for energy efficiency spending, much the same way Jen talked about the formula rate, where the more you spend, the more you get back. It's now the case that if utilities don't meet the metrics set by the Illinois Commerce Commission, their return on equity decreases proportionally. And since utilities are driven by return on equity, and since we previously had little or no penalty for not meeting those goals, this should ensure that utilities are incentivized to maximize their return on equity in a way that benefits consumers. Next slide, please. A few low income protections. So a lot of these are now codified. At the beginning of the pandemic, the utilities entered into an agreement with the ICC and consumer advocates, including CUB, to ensure that low income consumers and people affected by the economic impacts of COVID wouldn't be further burdened by their inability to pay the utilities. So now we have these codified, and that includes expanding. One thing that this law does that's new is expand the definition of what low income is to include 80% of area median income and 150% of the federal poverty limit. But it puts a prohibition on deposits, and some of the consumers who fell through the cracks at the beginning of the pandemic who still ended up having to pay a deposit, they'll be refunded that deposit. Late fees for low-income customers no longer apply, and there's a prohibition on credit card convenience fees. There's also leftover from the pandemic settlement are requirements to report monthly on a host of data, report that to the ICC, including the number of disconnections, disconnect notices sent out, disconnections for non-payment, the number of deferred payment arrangements that consumers enter into. And so this reporting, may not sound all that exciting, but to organizations like CUB, this data is extremely useful, and it helps us better understand how low-income consumers are impacted at different times of the year, how they're getting help, and whether or not there are any troubling patterns that are emerging in disconnections. Next slide, please. This is also, I'm pretty excited by this and can't wait to see what the ICC comes up with, but it's a low-income discount rate study. So on or before January 23rd, the Illinois Commerce Commission will study and assess whether or not a low-income discount rate is necessary. They'll look at eligibility requirements, the appropriate rate structure, income verification mechanisms, how we get the word out to people, and the actual impact on utility burden or utility affordability to consumers. So again, for organizations like CUB, to even have the ICC study this is kind of a victory. So it's really exciting to see what they come up with to provide some relief. And next slide, please, Jen. So talk quickly about Solar for All. So Solar for All was a program that was created by the Future Energy Jobs Act in 2016 as a way to ensure that low-income consumers, whether or not they own their home, are able to take advantage of the benefits of lower energy through solar generation. So the Future Energy Jobs Act set Solar for All's budget at $10 million a year, and the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act increases that budget to $50 million a year. And the bill also now requires those Solar for All projects to be coordinated with other programs that benefit low-income consumers, as well as jobs training programs and coordination with community action agencies who will be able to educate their clients now on Solar for All as an option. To ensure these projects are sited and built equitably, the Illinois Power Agency will attempt to make sure that Solar for All projects aren't clustered in certain parts of the state, and they'll strive to see that small and emerging businesses are able to participate in constructing these projects. And importantly, again, on reporting for workforce diversity, the Illinois Power Agency is going to report on the barriers to those small and emerging businesses taking part in building these sites. And next slide, please. Okay, and yeah, this is finally the community-driven community solar. This is one that I think a lot of us who worked on FEJA and implemented that were kind of excited about this program because FEJA created the community solar program, and it was intended to allow people who don't own their homes, or they live in an apartment building, or they otherwise can't put solar on their roofs. The Climate and Equitable Jobs Act continues funding community solar as we know it, but it also creates the Community Solar Energy Sovereignty Grant Program. So this is going to give up to $35 million. The fund will have $35 million per year to assist with the planning and development of community solar projects that are meant to be owned by a community and meant to build wealth in that community. Projects that are located in equity investment eligible communities and that will provide additional benefits for low income consumers will be prioritized. So that's really exciting. Again, this is a way, these solar programs are a way for people who can't afford to, or they're not in a position to put solar on their own roofs. They can still benefit from cheaper renewable energy. So these are a few of the major provisions in this bill as they relate to low income consumers and energy efficiency. And the bills and the details of the bill are very robust. A lot of other benefits and protections for consumers. It would take hours to lay all of those out, but I think these are the main ones that CUB was excited about. And that's all I have.
Great, thank you so much. And we're going to kick it off now to Jessica Beverly from Sierra Club. So just tell me when to switch the slide, Jess.
Sure, go ahead and switch it. Hi, I'm Jessica Beverly. I'm with the Sierra Club of Illinois. It's great to be with you tonight. This is a different graph representing sort of the same information that Jen went over earlier. It's since 2016, transportation has surpassed the power sector as our largest source of pollution in Illinois. And moving forward, it's something we're really going to have to keep an eye on and reduce our greenhouse gas emissions with. You can switch. This, just to prove the point that transportation is so important, it's been on the environmental organization and health advocates at radar for a really long time. There are a lot of really compelling reports on what air pollution associated with diesel is doing to our communities and how it's inequitably affecting areas. It's been more pronounced with the COVID-19 pandemic and the death rates in communities that have higher exposure to transportation pollution. These are just two examples. The exposure to air pollution from vehicles is inequitable as a UCS study that came out in 2020. The American Lung Association did a 2019 report showing that Chicago is the 18th most polluted city in the US. And Respiratory Health Association, I don't have it on here, they did a study on what it looks like for heavily trafficked CTA routes, CTA bus routes, and the disparate impacts on COPD, asthma, early deaths. So I think that in the coming years, we're going to see that transportation is really causing a lot of long-term harm, and we really need to take some steps. Next slide. So clean transportation and the CEJA Act that we just got passed, yay, finally done. Just getting started as far as this goes. Beneficial electrification plans are part of the Act, and this is something that we're going to have Ameren and ComEd make to spend ratepayer dollars on electrifying our transportation sector and reducing our air pollution. So under the beneficial electrification programs in November, the Illinois Commerce Commission is going to start a workshop process with stakeholders and community members to come up with a plan for how we're going to do that, what we're going to prioritize, where we want to see electric infrastructure, electrification of fleets, school buses, things like that. In the bill, the beneficial electrification plans will require a 40% spend in equity eligible communities. So those are our environmental justice communities, those are our low income communities, and a 5% focus on heavy duty electrification investments. This is one of the leading sources of pollution. It's not just your, internal combustion car, it's the diesel Amazon trucks coming through your neighborhood every day. So these plans are going to be really great. ICC will evaluate the cost effectiveness of the utility developed plans based on the feedback from the workshop. So if your organization has time and capacity to participate in this workshop process, I think it's a great idea. CEJA also requires the EPA to hire an electric vehicle coordinator who's going to oversee all of these processes, all of the electric vehicle policies in the state. And it's going to be awesome to have one point person to reach out to when there's a transportation issue. There's also rebates for electric vehicle charging infrastructure. There's $70 million in the bill directed toward electric vehicle charging infrastructure rebates. So I think I saw a question about that earlier. It's an 80% grant, and there's additional resources for charging equipment that's put up in environmental justice eligible communities and low income neighborhoods. It's going to be a really great way for us to get 1 million electric vehicles on the road by 2030. You have to have the charging infrastructure before people are going to be comfortable buying the vehicles. And this is an excellent step. The bill also includes a rebate for the electric vehicles. It's a revamp of the alternative fuels program, and it's a $4,000 statewide EV rebate. And I think that's all I have.
Great. Thank you all so much. I think we're going to head over into answering some of the Q&As, particularly questions that were sent in advance. So I wonder if Jessica from Representative LaPointe's office could maybe start off reading some of those questions. Maybe I should, I can do the ones that are in the chat.
Yeah, and actually I can I do love that some people sent their questions in advance. So while Jessica's getting situated, I'll just jump in. And I love this question because it's so simple and the bill was really complicated. And some of what you all just shared was a little complicated for those of us who aren't experts. So this is a really simple question. My uncle is going to be a displaced energy worker. How can I support him?
Oh. Trying to do this so I can answer. Yeah, so I think, well, Scott, actually, why don't you take this first? Scott leads some of our downstate caucus. So he's worked a lot with folks that are in some of those areas, but I can add on to it as well.
Yeah, I think the main thing is to, like, right now, it'll take a while to get these workforce programs up and going. But once we do, just educating about where these hubs are located. They're in the bill, the locations. Can't name all 13 off the top of my head, but and former energy workers are going to be prioritized for that. For any kids and dependents of the former energy workers, they get a year free tuition to any state school. So I would say stay tuned, and we can provide information to the public definitely once we kind of figure out how those, or when those hubs are going to get up and running, and point people like your uncle in the direction of those programs.
That's great.
All right, here's a very simple and fun one. And just so you know, we have about 9 that we got in advance. So we're doing pretty good on time. Do airplanes drop fuel or other materials on homes?
I don't know quite the answer to that one. I don't know, Jessica or Scott. I haven't heard of that being something that happens.
No, I'm not an expert, but I did some research on sustainable aviation fuel, and it's not a concern that they're dropping fuel on homes.
Thanks for that question.
Okay,
Okay, I'm gonna jump in. We've got a few more questions. Give me just one quick second. Have we had a chance to answer? Yes, okay. Give me one quick second. I'll jump in with the rest of these questions.
I can just pull one from, why don't I just do this Bob Simpson question? Aren't there incentives for homeowners to convert to solar or renewable that are restricted by utilities? I'm not aware of, I'm not aware of the utilities restricting homeowners access. When we passed the Future Energy Jobs Act, there is a point in time at which we are still supposed to transition from renewable energy credits to a straight fee, but we haven't hit that point yet, and there aren't rules for it. We actually had a really big challenge with Ameren when Ameren said they had met that point, and like everybody was like, no, we're not even close. It's a certain percentage. Other than making sure that the solar system can plug in, there are a lot of the utilities cannot restrict you from getting solar on your home. I don't know, Scott or Dusky, you want anything there?
There is, and I think you see that question. There are size, ComEd and Ameren do have system size limits. So yeah, they're not going to let you generate. If it's 90% in ComEd, I thought ComEd actually allowed for maybe 110%, and Ameren was more like 85 or 90%. They're not going to let you generate. Well, the idea is to size a system so that it offsets the better part of your load, and to leave some leeway there, and then to kind of store your over generation and return them as credits. But and then there are restrictions on kind of islanding so that you can be off the grid entirely. You can have battery storage, but you can't have the option to completely disconnect from ComEd's distribution network. So that said, there are a lot of incentives out there in place, and this bill kind of reaffirms those incentives to make it more affordable to go solar.
I guess a follow-up question from Bob, and this is also a Scott question. My main concern is middle-class citizens can't take advantage of renewable energy even with incentives. How can low-income citizens participate? Is there training involved? My family is going green and trying our hardest, but ComEd won't accept more than 90-ish buyback, and we're not allowed to go off the grid. Solar cells are highly toxic and disposably costly. That is, why don't we address some of the ways that low-income and middle-class citizens can participate in the benefits of solar?
Sure, yeah. So I mentioned the Solar for All program and community solar, which is, community solar through the Solar for All program, but Solar for All is specifically designed for consumers that meet a certain income threshold, and they are guaranteed a 50% savings on the supply portion of their energy bill. So that's just on the supply portion. So it is a way, there's no upfront cost. Even if a person participates in Solar for All and they get solar panels on their house, they don't have to pay for that. They don't own those panels. They're doing a power purchase agreement, but it still offsets their usage, and they're guaranteed, like I said, at least 50% off of the supply portion of their bill. So that's the best way for people that meet income requirements. For people who don't meet those income requirements but still can't get solar, I mentioned the community solar program, and that's a solar subscription. So you figure out how much electricity you use on average every month, and you subscribe to a solar farm in your utility territory that is trying to match, again, not trying to take more than you need, but trying to match what your load is every month. And again, it's a way to benefit from the cheaper price of the renewable energy for people who can't go out and buy it.
Great, thank you. And let's do a question for Jessica. This is from Charles on condos. Earlier this year, I heard that the bill would include a provision that multi-unit buildings such as condos would be required to reasonably accommodate owners who wish to install EV charging stations. I did not see that in the new law. Can someone comment on what happened to this provision and whether there is any work towards getting this passed?
Sure. So you're talking about the Electric Vehicle Charging Act that was carried by Rep Gable before CEJA was introduced and then added into CEJA later. So she's been working on this bill for some time now, a couple of years, and it did not make it into the final version of the bill. There was a lot going on with negotiations, and it didn't make it there. We're still working on some sections of it with the Home Builders Association and the Community Association folks. That is expected to be run next year, maybe, I hope. We're looking at legislative priorities for next year, but we've been working on it really hard over the course of several years to try to make sure that there's a clear bill of rights for renters and condo owners, and that there's clear requirements for making charging accessible to multi-unit dwellings.
Great, thank you, Jessica. This question from Susan was last, or Jessica, do you want to?
I can ask it. No, I was going to ask Susan's great question. So she said, today's news is covering anticipated significant increases in natural gas prices this winter. Is anyone concerned that there may be some misdirected backlash against CEJA when the increasing costs hit consumers? She says, I guess that I'm asking if CEJA's public facing communication, what's their plan?
Great. Yeah. So, I mean, I'll do some public facing communication and maybe Scott can add some here. Just I know we are working on making sure that folks know this is the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act. I know that we're doing mailers and tons of town halls and producing educational information. I mean, I do think with natural gas, there might be some confusion, but at least your natural gas bill may be, it might be Peoples or Peoples up here, or NICOR if you're somewhere else in the state. So at least it's a different bill than your ComEd or Ameren bill. So it's easy to rebut and say that. And I know that we wanted to include a lot on natural gas energy efficiency in this bill that didn't get included. And I think that portion is going to have to be something that we talk about next. I mean, a very small investment could result in hundreds of millions of dollars in savings for natural gas customers. in efficiency, where we really haven't done as much as we have in terms of electricity. So I think that also is the next step. There's so much, and that makes such a huge impact, especially on low income customers, in making sure that they can save money. So Scott, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think that I hope that we can pretty easily get people to understand that, you know, those natural gas rates that have been up since February, and as a result of the energy crisis in Texas. And we're hoping to avoid any such crises here by passing a bill like this. But yeah, those, you know, right now gas rates, the new ones were just published today. The first time I've ever seen a supplier be over $1 per therm. And we're about double the gas prices that we were this time last year. And I hope that none of that comes back to this bill, because that is absolutely the opposite of what, you know, what this bill does.
Great. Thanks. Jessica, you want to move on to another question?
Yeah, so we have another one that says solar for all. What's the benefit to my bottom line, and how do I get my school/church solar panels?
Yeah, so maybe I can give a little bit of like just getting solar panels, and maybe Scott, you want to add again. But I'll just give an example that, you know, we're a nonprofit organization, and we have a building that's in Springfield, Illinois, and we're getting over half of our energy from solar. And just a little of how we what we did on it. You know, it's an almost 10 kilowatt system, which is it's a 2,600 square foot building. So if that gives you that, it's larger than some homes, but most homes. But you know, commercial size. And our system cost us about $30,000. So we paid that, those labor, installation, all of that. And we got almost within 6 months back on $11,000 rebate for the sale of our renewable energy credits. And then it's something that, you know, every month we're saving tons of energy. We're actually in a municipal utility in Springfield. So those are some things that your nonprofit or church could look into. There also are a lot of solar leasing companies, and Cub, you know, has had some direction on some of those solar leases, but you can lease solar panels. And that might be a good opportunity for a church or school or that sort of thing, where you don't own them, but you pay a monthly fee. I know there's a lot of places with Faith in Place that have been providing information on how to get solar on your church. So I think that's great. No, Scott, you want to do the solar for all or correct anything that I said?
No, I think that was good, Jen, to talk about how that worked with the IEC building here. And I'll put my contact information in the chat too. And if anybody wants to follow up on this, I'm happy to. But Solar for All for communities, for buildings, public buildings or nonprofits and environmental justice communities that, you know, they serve the community. There is a way for them to get solar. There have been several projects where they can get, again, those through the Solar for All program, get solar panels on their buildings to help offset their costs. And, you know, like I said, I'll put my information there. I'd be happy to talk through how you could find a developer to do that through Solar for All.
Thank you. Other questions?
Got one last question. This also comes from Charles. So Charles says the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act refers to a program that provides an 80% rebate to organizations that install chargers. I have previously heard that A, the rebate is only for organizations in underserved, under-resourced areas. He says certainly not Oak Park. B, the rebate is generally available so long as funds last. His question is, can you help clarify whether or not this rebate would be generally available, or if it's available on a more limited basis, but related to the nature of the community or building it's in?
Sure. Yeah. So it's $70 million in capital budget money. So when it's gone, it's gone. It's an 80% rebate for anywhere, and it can be more for organizations that put them up in environmental justice or eligible communities. But Oak Park can get them if they apply.
I'm going to jump in. This is Lindsay. Okay, so one of the things that we heard about during the negotiations of the bill was how much the monthly charges were going to increase on a typical person's monthly energy bill. And the number that was kind of the final ballpark number was about $3.50 that we might expect a typical resident in Illinois to see their monthly energy bill increase by. Can somebody walk us through what that $3.50 will cover? Because nobody wants to pay more. And for some families, it does add up, and it's just more for your monthly expenses that are challenging. But we know the bill is big and complicated, and some of this money is going to really important places that will help with things like climate change.
Mm-hmm. So this is a question for Scott, although Scott, do you want me to also put up maybe I could just show the chart?
Yeah, I think that would help.
Let me look for it a second, but why don't you start verbally talking about it and I'll show this chart.
Yeah. So first, it's impossible to know exactly what that number is going to be. And during the negotiations, there was a pretty wide range of numbers that came out, all the way up to like maybe $13 or $15 per month. I think we can feel pretty confident that it's not going to be that. And the other thing to keep in mind here is that
this got my email on it, so everybody ignore how many tabs I've got open, but we've got a little bit of the chart here.
But yeah, what wasn't talked about, and so these are all the programs that are going to be covered. And I think obviously, my perspective from Cub here, that our utility bills go up all the time either way. Whatever happens, utilities recover everything through rates. And it's really a matter of what we want to invest in as a state, how we want to prioritize that. We could have very easily seen our rates increase in a similar manner if we wanted to prioritize natural gas build out, but we don't. So if you figure, the average of $350 a month for the residential customer, that gets you a lot in return. For example, on energy efficiency, the adage is that $1 spent on energy efficiency returns $4. And I think what doesn't go into these numbers, what is not calculated in here, are the offsets. So all of those energy efficiency programs we talked about, and the community solar, everything to keep consumer bills down, those weren't factored into there. So we don't know yet what the full offsets of this bill are going to be. And that doesn't even get into what is the social cost of carbon. So what's the cost of public health if we continue to burn fossil fuels? It's probably a lot higher than an average of $350 a month. So, at the very least, this is an investment.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for the question. And hopefully that chart that I put together just describes where some of those programs are coming from and what it will look like for residential customers. Great.
All right, we have a few more coming in through the chat.
We have one more that was not answered. Jessica, thank you for covering the question 4K for EV. One other question is, how can we get parks in Chicago? How can I get parks in parentheses Chicago and move the parks to renewable? I think this is another Bob Simpson question.
We're talking about getting renewable energy at our Chicago Park District.
I believe so.
Yeah, I mean that government can participate in these programs the same way that residential folks can, including some more of the utility scale stuff. I know Cook County has been really investing in solar energy, especially for some of their forest preserve districts. So that's definitely something that is doable within this program, and that government can and should participate in through the bidding process. So that's definitely something we can't get out of parks. So they just have to choose to head in that direction. Great. All right, we don't have any further questions. So thank you so much. Anybody? Last one, I guess, Representative LaPointe and Senator Martwick, do you want to close us down? Thank you so much for hosting this. Just any quick closing comments?
Senator, why don't you start?
Well, sure. I'd like to just thank everyone for participating. Of course, to our environmental partners and to CUB, thank you for being here to be a resource to our constituents and to share this important information about this monumental change to what is Illinois' energy policy and what will be a monumental change over time to our environment as we move towards clean energy. So, as I said earlier, this is a learning process, and even today, I continue to learn about how this bill is going to affect us, and I'm just all the more excited about the implementation happening. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for participating, and I hope you all have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, Senator. I echo those sentiments. Thanks, everyone, for participating virtually. We're not quite there yet in terms of getting back to in-person events like we did at the library 2 years ago. This is a really big and complicated issue. It is fair to say this is the biggest, most transformational bill that I have voted on up to this point. And what I really appreciated about this conversation, and let's keep having it, is just really simple and specific questions that were posed, because that's what helps everybody figure out exactly how this applies to my life here, wherever you are in Illinois. Many of you are here on the far northwest side of Chicago. And that's what we all need to understand, so we can continue to advocate for the policies we care about, whatever they may be: the environment, energy, recycling, getting solar in parks. And shout out to Bob Simpson for always bringing really critical questions to conversations like this. So just want to thank everyone for participating, and we will stay in touch on these issues, and we need you to stay in touch with us and continue to advocate, and you help the senator and I do what we have to do in Springfield.
All right, good night, everyone.